I called Maria back 3 times before she picked up on the fourth ring, her voice cracking through static. "Ma'am, don't go home, pull over and check the cameras." I took the next exit off Highway 71 and parked beneath a faded barbecue sign, my hands steady from 22 years of practice staying calm when things fell apart. I was Captain Rachel Morgan, 44, stationed at Fort Cavazos. My in-laws had just hugged me goodbye at the airport, supposedly boarding a flight to Seattle. I opened the security app. The living room camera showed my husband Daniel with his arms around another woman, wearing my cream cardigan, kissing her like it wasn't the first time. I didn't scream. I watched, memorized the timestamp, and saved the footage to 2 devices before my hands could shake. Then a blue suitcase rolled into frame. My mother-in-law Judith stepped into my living room, laughing. Not a recording. 11:47 a.m. They had never left Texas. I told Maria to leave through the garage and take nothing but her purse. Then I sat and listened as Daniel told the woman, "She never questions family," and Judith asked whether Maria had seen anything. "She's 61, Daniel said. She barely notices." Maria had noticed everything. 6 visits over months, she admitted on the phone, all of them explained away as a client meeting. What broke me wasn't the affair. It was that there'd been no introduction between Judith and this woman. They already knew each other. I rewound the footage and studied the room instead of the betrayal. 3 coffee cups, a fresh bakery box, a black SUV in the driveway with only 2 carry-on bags. The blue suitcase had been empty, a prop. And then Judith walked in carrying a thick manila envelope marked, in black marker, "Attorney." I didn't drive home. I drove to Austin and got an emergency appointment with Linda Brooks, a divorce attorney a fellow officer had once recommended. She watched the footage without reacting until the envelope appeared. "They're organized," she said. "Not about the affair, about whatever came next." She handed me a legal pad. "Think like an investigator, not a wife." We built a timeline. Daniel insisting we go paperless 6 months earlier. Judith offering to keep our house documents in her fireproof safe. Small kindnesses that now looked like staging. Linda's instruction was simple. Don't confront anyone, they'd expect anger. What they wouldn't expect was a patient woman collecting evidence. That night I logged into our joint investment account for the first time in months. Nearly $186,000 was gone, not withdrawn, transferred, in small amounts over 8 months, each labeled portfolio adjustment. Upstairs, Daniel hummed in the shower. An hour earlier he'd kissed my forehead and asked about dinner. The next day, property records turned up something worse. Daniel had sold our lake cabin outside Burnett to Judith for $1, 6 weeks earlier. "You don't sell a lake house for $1, I said. "No," Linda agreed. "You hide it." I met Maria at a cafe in Harker Heights. She'd worked for our family 10 years and thought she'd betrayed me by staying silent. I told her the truth was the opposite. Without her, I'd still be living inside Daniel's illusion. Life on base didn't pause. Morning formation, staff meetings, fuel inventories. The Army didn't care about my marriage, and that indifference became its own kind of comfort. Then Linda called with the timing Daniel had chosen. He planned to file for divorce while I was hundreds of miles away on a 6-week training deployment to Fort Irwin. He thought distance would keep me from fighting. He didn't realize the game had already changed. For 2 weeks I lived double. At home, dinner, laundry, old episodes of Blue Bloods. During the day, Linda and I assembled a case, receipt by receipt. Then she found a sworn statement Daniel had filed for a business loan, claiming I'd effectively abandoned the marital relationship and that he'd raised our household alone. 2 deployments in 18 years, both under 9 months. He hadn't just lied to me. He'd rewritten who I was to everyone around us. Even our pastor, who admitted Daniel had asked the church to pray I'd find my way back to family. More money surfaced. Over $140,000 from our investment account had funded renovations on the cabin he no longer legally owned. I wanted to drive home and throw his clothes in the yard. Instead, I remembered a first sergeant's advice: never move before you understand the whole battlefield. Then Linda called with one line. "We found someone willing to talk, and it's not who you think." Daniel's mistress, Emily Carter, a 38-year-old pharmaceutical rep from Waco, agreed to meet me in Linda's office. "I didn't know he was still your husband," she said. "He told me the divorce finished last winter, that you'd already moved on." She'd met Judith and Harold at Thanksgiving, the same holiday Daniel told me his parents wanted small because everyone was tired. I'd been in West Texas coordinating flood relief. They'd celebrated with her instead. We weren't rivals. We'd been manipulated by the same man. Then Emily said the sentence that cracked Daniel's story wide open. She'd just learned he'd proposed to another woman in Dallas. Neither of us had been the only one. Linda's instruction for the deposition was simple. Say as little as possible. Daniel walked in smiling, told me I looked good. When Linda asked about Emily, he claimed not to know her, until Linda slid across photographs spanning 10 months, then played a recording of his own voice. I just haven't taken the ring off yet. Asked about the cabin sold for $1, he said it was a gift. Asked about the $140,000 in renovations, he said he didn't recall. Then Emily herself walked in, uninvited by him, and asked the only question that mattered. Which one of us were you planning to marry? Daniel had no answer. For the first time, the man with an explanation for everything had none. The hearing was set for a Wednesday in September at the Bell County Courthouse. I wore my dress uniform, not to impress anyone, but because it represented something Daniel had spent months trying to undermine. Maria testified first, plainly. I know the difference between greeting someone and kissing them. Emily testified next, admitting her own mistakes without excusing his. Then Linda played the footage. The kiss, Judith's arrival, the envelope. Harold loading boxes into his truck over several weekends, timed against the property transfers. On the stand, Daniel's attorney asked if the financial decisions were made in good faith. Yes. Linda stood and asked why he'd texted me that his parents landed safely in Seattle, while the cameras showed all three of them eating dinner in my dining room. The courtroom went silent. Judge Eleanor Watkins recessed before ruling. Over lunch, I realized something had shifted. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired, and I no longer needed Daniel to suffer. I needed the truth to matter. That was enough. When court resumed, the judge found overwhelming evidence Daniel had concealed assets and misrepresented finances. The cabin transfer for $1 was declared a fraudulent conveyance, reverting to the marital estate. He was ordered to reimburse the missing investment funds. I was awarded the house in Killeen, and he paid a substantial settlement along with most legal fees for his conduct during discovery. Marriage sometimes fails, the judge said, looking at him. Dishonesty is what turned this into something far more serious. Outside, Harold approached me alone. I should have stopped this, he said. It became my business the day I stayed quiet. I told him I hoped he'd find peace. Some apologies arrived too late to fix anything, but they still mean something. I paid off Maria's mortgage that week. She'd spent 10 years taking care of my home. No court order could repay that kind of loyalty, but I could try. 6 months later, I drove the same stretch of Highway 71 to pick up my sister from that same airport, and my hands didn't shake. I still serve at Fort Cavazos, recently promoted. Maria still works with me. We don't call it that anymore. Daniel's business lost most of its longtime clients once the divorce went public. The cabin sold. He moved into an apartment outside Temple. I stopped tracking his life, not from bitterness, but because I finally didn't need to. Now I volunteer once a month with military spouses going through their own divorces. A woman asked me recently how I let go of wanting revenge. I told her I never wanted revenge. I wanted the truth. And once the truth had a chance to speak for itself, I didn't need to carry the anger anymore. If you'd found that footage in a parking lot with your engine still running, would you have turned around and driven straight home? Or would you have done exactly what I did, kept driving, and let the evidence do the talking?